Cheng Hui had a soft and confused heart in his previous life, living a miserable life. Under the attack of my stepmother's tears, I gave the job I got to my younger sister and went to the countryside on her behalf. Under the design of my best friend, I broke up with my engaged boyfriend and married a rural soldier. My husband is handsome and capable, and he is also a military king, but it's useless. He's hardly at home. The remaining in-laws are treacherous, while the younger uncles and aunts are all mischievous, disturbing her for half of her life. Stealing her dowry, throwing her children, stuffing men into her bed, which is human affairs. Reborn and returning, she wants to transform into a wolf and tidy them all up obediently. A few years later, both the young master and aunt became her little followers. Bring her tea and pour water, with a saddle in front and a horse behind. Various factory owners on the brink of bankruptcy are chasing after her, seeking advice and rescue. She goes to school and earns money while giving birth, and giving birth. How to break the constitution of easy pregnancy. Chapter 1. Rebirth and Breakthrough. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cheng Hui was awakened by the pain. My stomach is stiff, tense and sore. In the darkness, she reached out and touched her high and bulging abdomen, completely stunned. She's pregnant. Her only daughter has been born for a long time, okay. And because of premature birth, my daughter has been weak and sickly since childhood. At the age of 4, she was taken out shopping by her sister and lost. Her husband has gone crazy. Using all resources to find her daughter, she was disciplined and suspended by superiors, and her bright future was lost. Thinking of these, Cheng Hui's heart stabbed fiercely, but what exactly is going on with this stomach? Suddenly, a white light flashed past her and she knew what had happened to her. She was reborn in 1973 and is now 7 months pregnant. 3 days ago, I was hit by a sister-in-law and fell to the ground, almost miscarriage. Fortunately, after raising it for 3 days, it has been well again. But her black-hearted and lung-rotten grandmother still didn't want to let her go, so she moved into the warehouse on the grounds that she could give birth at any time. That night, a scoundrel from the neighboring village crawled into her house, and after struggling, she gave birth prematurely. Surprisingly, the mother-in-law didn't give up and wanted to throw away her child. She fought her life to get it back. Cheng Hui touched her stomach, tears welled up in her eyes, thanking the heavens for giving her a chance to start over. She will definitely protect herself and her daughter in this life. Be sure to cherish the man she misunderstood and missed. As for those grudges, she will avenge them this time. She put on her clothes and quietly went out to the home of the production team leader in Gaojiatan. Gao Qishan's family is lighting lamps and rubbing hemp ropes. This year, each household has to hand over the task of tying 10 hemp ropes. Seeing Cheng Hui, Gao Qishan's family was very surprised. They all know Cheng Hui, this little educated youth. Young, beautiful, and aloof, not fond of talking to the villagers. Not long after going to the countryside, I drowned and was rescued, touched, and kissed by Gao Yuan. Then she married Gao Yuan, who stayed at home for 3 days before ending her vacation and returning to the military. As a result, she became pregnant anyway. Gao Yuan is his nephew, and this is his niece and daughter-in-law. What's up at night? Asked Gao Qishan. Cheng Hui sat down and didn't speak. As Gao Qishan's family strangely stopped their work and looked at her, Cheng Hui's tears suddenly burst into tears. She didn't cry out, just shed tears, and her face was full of grievances. The people of the Gao family don't understand what "pear blossoms bring rain" means. They just feel that crying is not annoying and only makes people feel heartbroken. Gao Qishan frowned and said, "Don't cry. Who bullied you? Tell me." Cheng Hui took a deep breath, wiped away her tears, and choked up, saying, "I've been lying for 3 days, feeling better. In the evening, I wanted to come out and breathe, so I slipped over to the firewood pile behind my house and heard my mother-in-law talking to a man. One sentence has already made Gao Qishan's family wide-eyed and focused. Is Cheng Hui's mother.in.law looking for a wild man? My mother.in.law said she will drive me to the warehouse today and ask him to come over in the middle of the night. If he can get it, he can get it. If he can't get it, he'll get rid of the child in my stomach. The people of the Gao family were all shocked. It turned out that it was not the mother.in.law looking for a wild man, but the mother.in.law looking for a wild man for her daughter.in. law. After Gao Qishan's initial surprise, he looked at Cheng Hui and asked, "What do you want to do about this?" Cheng Hui had known for a long time that she didn't make a scene on the spot, but came to find him in the middle of the night. She must have a plan in her heart. Cheng Hui Dao said, "I have no basis for this. There must be evidence. I want to ask the captain to guard my room with the members of the militia to see if we can catch this man, and then find my mother.in.law to judge, so that others don't think I have fabricated and wronged her." The first time Gao Qishan looked at her directly, the little girls from big cities were different. This way of thinking was most beneficial to her. It's just unfavorable to the reputation of the Gao family. But forget it, Gao Laosan's wife is really too much. The reputation of the Gao family has ruined her. It's time to tidy her up. You wait here, as long as there is this person, I promise to catch you. Gao Qishan has gone out. A few hours later, the quiet village suddenly heard a man scream. The courtyard of Gao Laosan's family has become lively. Zhang Lizi was tied up and knelt on the ground, while the onlookers stood in the yard. What's wrong? Is this a thief? Which non-I.catching person stole from Lao San's house? What else does his family have besides mopping oil bottles? Ha ha ha. Gao Lao San is a strange woman in this village. He has married 4 widows and 8 out of 12 children are not his. He was standing in the crowd, happily giggling, as if it was someone else's house. His current wife Zhu Qiufang stood behind him, with a pale face and a slight tremble. This idiot. How did someone catch you? Has the matter been completed? She glanced at the motionless warehouse and gritted her teeth before standing out. Captain, we haven't lost anything at home. Let's just forget about this. It's so cold, everyone has dispersed. We still have to start work tomorrow. Everyone is indeed preparing to disperse. At this point, sneaking around is not a big deal, let alone not stealing. Being caught, beaten, and released is the normal process. Suddenly, Zhu Qiufang's eyes widened, as if she had seen a ghost. Cheng Hui walked in from outside the yard. Everyone, wait a moment. This is not the case. I heard it this evening at the firewood pile. Then please ask Captain Uncle to help me catch the person, now the person has really been caught. She looked coldly at Zhu Qiufang and said, "What else do you have to say now?" Everyone suddenly exploded. Stealing someone, or being instructed by my mother.in.law to steal a wild man's daughter.in.law, this news is so explosive that they can't even handle it. I don't have it. You're speechless. Zhu Qiufang looked at her accusingly, "You stole by yourself, but you pinned the poop on my head. I've seen you and Zhang Lizi rolling the haystack several times. The child in your belly is his." Wow, this news is also quite exciting. There have been various opinions about who the child in Cheng Hui's belly belongs to. Because it is said that she originally had a boyfriend who was engaged in Beijing. Just arrived at their village and was fiercely pursued by a male-educated youth. It is said that someone saw them coming out of the small forest together. Later, she got pregnant after marrying Gao Yuan for 3 days. Is Gao Yuan so accurate? Now the young stepmother from Gao Yuan said she saw her and Zhang Laozi rolling on the haystack with her own eyes. Several men in the crowd looked at Cheng Hui differently. Cheng Hui just said lightly, "Have you seen it several times? Why didn't you say it before?" I'm all for the sake of the reputation of the Gao family, the reputation of Gao Yuan. I don't have the same opinion as you. I didn't expect you to bite me back, you black-hearted and rotten liver. Zhu Qiufang said more and more smoothly, as if it were true. Chapter 2. Crosstalk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How many times have you seen it? When and where, please explain in detail, Cheng Hui said. Zhu Qiufang opened her mouth and said, the first time was the night before you and Gao Yuan got married. You were in the small forest behind the educated youth point, and I went to pick up firewood. I saw it. The second time is the day after Gao Yuan walked, in the evening, in the mill at the village head. The third time is on the day when the village distributed the grain. I asked you to go and get the grain, but you didn't come back for a long time. I searched and found that you two were fooling around in the primary school at the village head. The eighth time was this evening when I went to the back of the house to get firewood and saw you and Zhang Laozi coming out from inside. I didn't expect that when you saw the situation exposed, you immediately slapped the poop on my head. You're so amazing. Zhu Qiufang said it 8 times in one breath, and the more she spoke, the smoother it became. She even had details and chose the right time and place, all of which were suitable places for stealing. Cheng Hui actually greatly admires her adaptability and ability to make up stories. It's a pity not to write novels. Now, everyone believes it. Staring at her with bright eyes. The eyes of several men in the crowd were even more brazen. Cheng Hui spoke up and said, now, let's talk about the first time. The day before my marriage to Gao Yuan, I cried at the educated youth point for a day and a night without leaving the room. It wasn't until the next morning that Gao Yuan came to pick me up that all the female educated youth could testify, right? There are also female educated youth in the crowd watching the excitement. Upon hearing her words, they immediately nodded, which left a deep impression on them. Cheng Hui is from the capital, and it is said that her father was still an official. As a result, she was forced to marry a rural soldier, and they all sympathized and advised her to stay overnight. Cheng Hui continued, and when did you pick up firewood? All the firewood at home is picked up by a few children. Everyone suddenly buzzed. It was like this, their firewood was also picked up by children. How can adults have time? And who picks up firewood in the middle of the night? I can see a ghost. Speaking of the second time, the day after Gao Yuan left, it was Saturday, April 15th. The team leader said that the farming rush was about to start, and everyone was eating together. The team produced food, and the mill was busy from morning until late at night. You went back to your mother's house at noon that day and only came back the next morning. Did you go to the mill again in the latter half of the night? Did you see Zhang Laozi? Did you go with him? Unfortunately, you went and I didn't go. That day, my sister-in-law and I had a fight in the latter half of the night because we were snatching blankets while sleeping. The crowd quieted down and then burst into laughter. Leaving aside whether this is true or not, how do they remember last April? It's already January 73. But Cheng Hui's words are quite interesting. Zhu Qiufang and Zhang Laozi. Zhu Qiufang's face turned blue and she said, impossible. You're all making up nonsense. How could you remember so clearly? You even remember the day of the week. You can remember clearly, why can't I remember clearly? As for the time, the day of the week, just take out the calendar and take a look. Cheng Hui said. Immediately, someone good will run home to get the perpetual calendar. It's not the time to take the blame anymore, most people have a copy of this thing. Last year, I couldn't bear to throw it away and kept it as grass paper for my child to play on. As a result, it turned out that April 15th was indeed a Saturday. Cheng Hui had already continued, the third time, the day the village distributed the grain was on October 18th. The elementary school day happened to be on vacation, and there was no one around. The location was quite suitable. Zhu Qiufang immediately grabbed her braid and shouted, look. You admit it, right? You admit it all. But that day you were the first one to receive food, and then you carried 50 pounds back to your mother's house without stopping. You didn't come back until dark at night because this father.in.law fought with you until midnight. When did you ask me to go get food again? When did you find me at the elementary school? Wow! The crowd screamed uncontrollably. Many people know about this matter. Because every year, Gao Lao San is the first family to receive food. She also goes to her mother's house every year for the first time and gets beaten every year. Gao Lao San looked at Zhu Qiufang with a calm face. Cheng Hui continued, the fourth time, November 3rd, Sunday. She had a good memory in her previous life, although it wasn't unforgettable, it was almost there. Now reborn, she realizes that as long as she thinks, she can recall any details that happened in her previous life. Including the months, days, and days of the week, as well as the content in the newspapers I have read. She refuted one by one. Everyone clamored to prove that everything she said was right. On the contrary, Zhu Qiufang's accusations just now were all lies. Everyone was discussing and pointing, but Zhu Qiufang didn't care anymore. She glared at Zhang Laozi with all her might. Zhang Laozi kept staring at Cheng Hui with a gloomy expression, suddenly showing a sly smile and about to speak. The corner of Cheng Hui's eye was also shining on him, and upon seeing this scene, he suddenly stepped forward. Slammed down the stone prepared in advance. After being caught in the previous life, this coward would shout around that she called him over. They had already gotten along. At that time, she wanted to tear his mouth apart. Now it has finally been realized. The stone was sharp, and with just a few strokes, it smashed the lips of the leprosy into pieces, spraying out a few teeth. Too much force, my stomach hurts a bit. Cheng Hui threw a stone and turned to ask Gao Qishan with a choked voice, Captain Uncle, what punishment should they receive for killing me? The captain and squad leader of the production team now have great power. As long as it's not a big case of murder, arson, poisoning that leads to death in the production team, the authorities don't care about small incidents and sneaky activities. It is entirely up to each production team to decide how to punish. Gao Qishan called 2 militiamen and said, one person hits them with 50 big mouths. Zhu Qiufang was pulled by someone and immediately hid behind Gao Lao San, saying, I didn't lie. I remember the wrong day. But I really saw it. It was all her stubbornness that refused to admit it. Master, save me. I got beaten, and you don't have any face. Gao Lao San, the person who values face the most, frowned and said to Cheng Hui, we are all part of the same family. She is still your mother.in.law. Why do you want to beat or kill her? How could you be such a daughter.in.law? Cheng Hui sneered and said, if I were you, I should think carefully now. Why could she command Zhang Laozi to do such a foolish thing? How deep is their relationship? She only goes back to her mother's house every 3 to 5 days, is it really just going back to her mother's house? Zhang Laozi and Zhu Qiufang's family are from the same village. Gao Laosan's eyes were already wide open, and he didn't need the militia to do anything. He raised his palm and slapped Zhu Qiufang. Tell me. What exactly is your relationship? Cheng Hui is not satisfied with 50 slaps at all. She said to Gao Qishan, I will spare no effort to lose my reputation, and I will also go to the county to accuse Zhang of rape. Widow Zhu is guilty of the same crime as him. People do not hold officials accountable, but if she really goes to sue, the higher authorities will also take care of it. When the news spreads, when outsiders mention the production team in Gaojiadan, they will open their mouths and say, is it the production team where the mother.in.law found the wild man for her daughter.in.law? Ga. It's embarrassing for the entire production team to follow suit. The most embarrassing thing is his team captain. Gao Qishan immediately said to the militia, break Zhang Laozi's leg. But when it comes to Zhu Qiufang, he feels a bit embarrassed. He whispered to Cheng Hui, it's not appropriate to interrupt her hands and feet. She has broken her hands and feet, so she can't work or earn a share of work. It's still your own family that has been damaged. You still have to have someone take care of her eating, drinking, and urinating, and the whole family will have objections to you. Please forgive others and leave a line for everything so that we can see each other better in the future. You still have to live in the Gao family. Now that you have offended Zhu Qiufang to death, what will happen when her 3 children hit you? Zhu Qiufang is in her 30s this year, and her eldest son is already 14 years old, as strong as a calf. Cheng Hui suddenly covered her mouth and choked up, saying, I understand the truth, but she's asking someone to take the lives of me and my child. But I spared her lightly. When the time comes, the people who are watching today will think I'm being bullied. Everyone wants to climb my bed. Anyway, they can't stand 50 mouths. Gao Qishan's back stiffened and suddenly strode over, personally pulling Zhu Qiufang out of the militia's hands and pressing her to the ground. 1 foot broke her left arm. Chapter 3. Good Sisters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Gao Qishan was young, he served in the military. Later, when he was injured, he retired and returned home, easily breaking a woman's arm. He scanned the people around him with bright eyes, focusing on men. If anyone in our Gaojiatan dares to commit adultery and commit crimes, bully women, I will step on their lifeline. The men immediately clenched their legs and dared not look at Cheng Hui again. Cheng Hui looked at Gao Qishan and took note of this favor. After watching the excitement, everyone dispersed with satisfaction. Everyone should take a few glances at Cheng Hui before leaving. Cheng Hui has been in this village for almost a year, but today he speaks more than they have heard in a year. And it's very clear and well-founded. Is that right? Is the child in her belly really lofty? Cheng Hui ignored everyone's gaze and searched through the crowd, only to find the target. Gaoji, could you help me take the quilt to the educated youth point? I stayed at the educated youth point today, she said. She looked at Takashi with a somewhat complicated expression in her eyes. She was a skilled worker, one of her top-notch little aunties. But she didn't have a black eye, everything was on her face, going straight and never stabbed her in the back. In her previous life, she was able to retrieve her daughter, and she also helped a lot. Gao Qishan felt relieved when he heard that Cheng Hui was going to stay at Jiqingdian. Cheng Hui is not foolish. If she dares to enter the house now, those children like Zhu Qiufang dare to hit her. Takashi is the child left by the second widow, not the same as widow Zhu. But it may not necessarily be listening to her. Sure enough, 15-year-old Takashi twisted his neck and coquettishly said, Why should I help you? Cheng Hui Dao said, I'll give you 50 cents. Takashi was taken aback for a moment, then turned his head and rushed into the warehouse. Soon, he came out holding the blanket. Cheng Hui smiled and said, You still have to help me over. It's not a big deal. Takashi held the bedding in one hand and left with Cheng Hui on the other. Behind them, the eyes of Zhu Qiufang and Zhang Laozi seemed to have been poisoned. The educated youth point is not far away, just at the village head, next to the primary school. There are 2 red brick courtyards, one inhabited by all male educated youth and the other inhabited by female educated youth. There are 2 rooms for female educated youth, but now 8 female educated youth are squeezed together in one room, which saves firewood. A few people who didn't go to see the excitement just now in the room were listening to someone who had come back and was talking about something exciting when Cheng Hui came in. Everyone suddenly fell silent and looked at her inexplicably. Suddenly, a female educated youth came down from the Kong and pulled Cheng Hui to look left and right. Shall we? You're back. I didn't expect you to suffer so much injustice. That thug didn't bully you just now, did he? Everyone's eyes changed. Yes, a thug just entered Cheng Hui's house. Cheng Hui looked at Su Xiao and smiled. Digging another pit for her. She was really blind in her last life, and always regarded her as a sister's. Share anything good with her since I was young, and tell her what I have in my heart. Where is Su Xiao? But pretending to drown and asking her to save her. As a result, I held her tightly and pressed her into the water. Only when she stopped struggling did she drag her ashore and cry so hard again. If it weren't for Gao Yuan coming back from vacation and doing artificial respiration and cardiopulmonary resuscitation for her, she would have died. I hate how foolish I was in my previous life. I believed Su Xiao's lies again, and she didn't mean to be in the water. She didn't know how to water, she was panicked, and she didn't know what I was doing. Continue to be good sisters with her. And breaking up with her ex-boyfriend, marrying Gao Yuan, misunderstanding that there are people outside Gao Yuan, and not liking herself are all related to Su Xiao. Cheng Hui asked the female-educated youth who was just reporting, didn't you explain it clearly? I heard Widow Zhu's scheme in advance and reported it to the squad leader. At that time, the militia was inside the room, and I was still at the squad leader's house, so I didn't confront that thug. Oh, I said it. The female-educated youth quickly said. Everyone also reacted and felt embarrassed. If we have to blame it, we can only blame Cheng Hui for his poor reputation. Whenever there is a disturbance, they are prone to thinking crooked. Gao Ji placed the betting on the Kong and looked at Cheng Hui, waiting to ask for money. Cheng Hui whispered, wait a few minutes for me. She broke free from Su Xiao's hand and sat on the chair, taking a deep breath. The room was warm, and her tense nerves finally relaxed. Suddenly, she felt the baby in her stomach lightly kick her, lively and powerful, and suddenly burst into a happy smile. She asked Su Xiao lightly, Xiao Xiao, 3 months ago you told me that your mother was seriously ill and needed surgery. Is she feeling better now? Su Xiao paused for a moment and smiled, she's much better now. Thank you for thinking about her. Well, when will you repay me the 50 yuan you lent me back then? Cheng Hui asked. Everyone looked at Cheng Hui unexpectedly. She has so much money. Also lent it to Su Xiao. 50 is a huge sum of money. For example, the 3 families of Gao Lao, with many children and few strong labor, have to hang upside down all year round and owe money to the production team. You can't earn a penny. Other farmers may earn 20 or 30 yuan a year. This is the total income of a family, not the average income per person. A big fat pig can only be sold for around 50 yuan for inferior ones. Su Xiao's face stiffened and she desperately winked at Cheng Hui. Didn't you tell her not to reveal her wealth back then? Can't others know she has so much money? You can't tell anyone that she lent her money. Cheng Hui pretended not to understand and asked in confusion, what kind of expression are you looking at? We grew up together from elementary school to high school, and when you borrowed money from me, I didn't ask you to write an IOU. Can't you deny this? Then I'll write to your mother and ask her to repay. Look at what you're saying. Su Xiaoxing said, I'm just angry that your wealth has been exposed. If it weren't for you shouting everywhere that your father is an official and your family has money, could Zhao Wei pursue you and not let you go? Now you're here again. You also said that we grew up together since childhood and are closer than our sisters. Am I the one who borrows money and refuses to repay it? Cheng Hui's mouth curved slightly, but in fact, she was not unjustly defeated in her previous life. Look at what they said, they dug a hole for her, PUA her, but didn't say whether she borrowed her money or how much she borrowed. So you mind when I'll repay the 50 yuan I borrowed? Cheng Hui held her with one hand and wiped her eyes with the other, saying, I have no choice but to ask for this money. You see, I can't go back to the Gao family anymore. Now I have nothing but a bedding roll all over my body. I have to eat. When will you repay the money? Su Xiao is so angry that she won't leave money without 3 words. How has she become so vulgar now? Why not fake high? On the surface, she felt embarrassed and said, you know that money was meant to save my mother's life. Although she is doing well now, she hasn't started work yet and doesn't have any salary. When she saves enough money, mail it to me and I will definitely repay you as soon as possible. So if she doesn't repay, it's her mother's problem, not her problem. Chapter 4. Seizing Money. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Cheng Hui looked up straight at Su Xiao and said, "Xiao Xiao, do you really have money to pay me back? Look at me, in the cold winter of the 12th lunar month, outside it's minus 40 degrees Celsius, but I'm wearing a thin cotton jacket. My old thick cotton jacket is right on you. And my thick cotton shoes are also on your feet. And my wash basin, thermos, and snow cream. When you said the Gao family couldn't be trusted, I didn't take them with me and kept them for you to use. I lent you all my money. I don't have any money now, and I don't even know where my next meal is. Aren't you returning my money?" Everyone looked at Cheng Hui as if they were looking at a fool, so she was so kind to Su Xiao. So all the things Su Xiao uses are from Cheng Hui. Su Xiao's face was flushed, but her expression was even more aggrieved than hers. "Xiaohui, I really don't have any money. As you know, I only brought a total of 10 yuan from home. When I received a letter from my mother that she was sick, I mailed her 1 yuan and didn't leave a penny." "Really not? Not a penny?" Cheng Hui asked. Su Xiao shook her head and said, "There really isn't." Cheng Hui immediately looked at Gao Ji with embarrassment. Takashi's eyes widened and he said, "Okay. So you don't have money. You're lying to me. I don't care if you borrow or take it, you must give me 50 cents now. Otherwise, you won't want your bedding either." She immediately went to grab the bedding. Cheng Hui also stood up and fought with her, crying as she fought, "This is my last thing. Without it, I would freeze to death. You, go take a look at Su Xiao. She likes to sew money into her underwear pocket." With the help of her body, she gave a glance to Takashi and gestured 1 before making a mouth gesture. 1 yuan. Takashi was taken aback for a moment. Turning around, he rushed towards Su Xiao. Tearing open the buttons of her cotton jacket, lifting her sweater, and grabbing her upper underwear, her eyes lit up and she exclaimed in surprise. "I touched it. A bunch of money." Wow! Several female educated youth in the room were all dumbfounded. Just now Su Xiao spoke so firmly that they all believed it. Is the result really rich? Su Xiao struggled desperately. But she is also a little girl from the capital. She has been here for a year and has never done the work that others can do on her own. She cannot resist Gao Ji, who has been doing heavy work since childhood. With a few clicks, Takashi pulled off the small pocket sewn onto her underwear and opened it in public. Colorful, with some zeros and some whole ones, it's 18 yuan and 35 cents. She looked at Su Xiao disdainfully and said, "Is that it? Is it really not there? Not a penny? Is this paper? Then give it all to me." Su Xiao went to grab it. Gao Ji slapped her hand open, took out 1 yuan from inside, and stuffed the rest into Cheng Hui's hand. Cheng Hui's mouth curled up and quickly drooped, looking at Su Xiao with a disappointed expression in her eyes. "I never expected you to be such a person. I don't have it, I'm not. This money." Cheng Hui interrupted her and said, "Do you want to say that this money was borrowed by you just now? It was for your mother's medical treatment. Who did you borrow it from? We will go over and confront each other immediately." Su Xiao has planned several candidates in her heart. There are 2 that are quite suitable. Who should I choose? Cheng Hui said again, "Who else in this world besides me can be so kind to you and lend you so much money without making a promissory note? Men and women. What is your relationship?" All the candidates are immediately unavailable. 18 yuan is also quite a bit. If it's a woman who is so foolish, except for Cheng Hui. She doesn't have a second sisters who can tell her lies. If it's a man, then they have an unfair relationship. Su Xiao doesn't want to have any improper relationships with anyone yet. Her crush is in the capital, so she absolutely can't tarnish her reputation. Cheng Hui put the money into his pocket and suddenly remembered something strange and said, since you still have so much money left in your hand, is it your mother not sick? Or did you deduct the money? This is another proposition. Did Su Xiao lie? Or is she unfilial? Does she still withhold life.Saving money when her mother is dying? Su Xiao covered her face with a cry and ran out. The room is quiet. Cheng Hui sighed to everyone again and said, I never thought she was this kind of person. I used to be so good to her. Everyone quickly comforted her and gave her the Kong to live on. She is also a pregnant woman and a big fool who was cheated by her little sisters. Everyone sympathizes with her. Cheng Hui took some time to deliver Gao Ji to the door and whispered, come find me tomorrow morning, come with me to a place, and I'll give you another one yuan. Gao Ji suddenly nodded like pounding garlic. An hour later, Su Xiao couldn't bear the cold outside and came back with a hard face. She is a talkative person, although she likes to take advantage of small things, she won't be as ruthless as she is towards Cheng Hui. She is very smart and knows how to judge others by their preferences. No one else gets used to her. So she used to have a good relationship with the educated youth in this room. Although they were not as close as sisters, they also talked and laughed with each other. It's different now. Seeing her return, some snorted coldly, some sneered, and some pretended not to see her. And her position has shifted from the middle to the top of the Kong. Su Xiao's face turned red, pretending not to hear, and she got into bed, covered her head, and didn't come out. Cheng Hui slept a bit restless all night. She was afraid that Su Xiao would get up in the middle of the night and hurt her child, so she woke up at dawn. Just as I woke up, I heard Takashi knocking on the door. Cheng Hui looked at the lively, beautiful, and energetic little girl in front of her, and suddenly remembered the way she looked when she died in her previous life. In my past life, my heart was higher than the sky, and my destiny was thinner than paper. I went to visit a relative's house in the city who could only be beaten by 8 poles, and I fell in love with their youngest son. He sneaked into someone else's room and the next day said they had an affair with her and had to marry her, otherwise he would sue him for being a hooligan. In this way, she disrupted the man's original marriage and married him. Can someone treat her well? I heard she was either beaten or scolded, and the whole family despised her. After enduring it for a few years, she couldn't help but run away with a wealthy person and went to the south. The result was that the wealthy person was fake and sold her to a special place. Gaoji is also a ruthless person. He suddenly gained fame on that road, and later became a big brother and became a sister.in.law. Finally, I ate peanuts together with my big brother. It was the corpse she collected in the past. Thank you to them for helping her retrieve her daughter, who had been lost for over a decade. Where are you going today? Gao Ji asked immediately when he saw Cheng Hui. Cheng Hui said, you'll know in a little while. She turned around and went to the edge of the Kong to pull out the cotton jacket that Su Xiao had taken off and placed under her pillow, put it on, and then put on her cotton shoes. To Su Xiao, who pretended to be dead, he said, the cotton-padded trousers are for you. It's all our sister's love for so many years. In the future, we will never have anything to do with each other. Actually, it's the pants that someone should wear on her diaphragm. Gao Ji immediately said, no, sister.in.law. I'm also your sister's. You might as well send her to me. Cheng Hui was taken aback for a moment. This was the first time Gao Ji had called her sister.in.law in her 2 lifetimes. She immediately smiled and said, okay, then I'll give it to you. Chapter 5. Letter Writing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Takashi didn't mind it at all, and immediately pulled out Su Xiao's pants that were tucked under the bed, putting them directly over her cotton pants. Gao Laosan's family is so poor that even mice cry when they go in. She is still one of the procrastinators. It would be great if she could wear thin cotton pants. Now that I have a pair of thick cotton pants, I feel like I have obtained a treasure, and my gaze at Cheng Hui is different. It's like watching a big fool, no, good sisters. Su Zhao's bed moved and moved, probably crying in anger. Takashi flattered and said, "Sister-in-law, you are such a good person. How could I have been blind before and not noticed it?" Cheng Hui looked at Su Zhao's bed and said with a hint, "It's okay, everyone has moments when their eyes don't work, like before." "Yes. We are blind sisters," Takashi said. Cheng Hui, "Just know, there's no need to shout so loudly." The two of them left the educated youth courtyard and walked directly outside the village. Gao Ji guessed, "Sister-in-law, are you going to the commune?" "Well, buy some food and cotton, it's too cold," Cheng Hui said. "Also, write a letter to my family." Each educated youth has their own rations, and everyone puts their rations together, taking turns cooking and eating big pot rice. Her food is from Gao Laosan's family, and she feels embarrassed to eat other people's meals. And her family doesn't even know about her marriage yet. In her past life, she was somewhat forced to marry and didn't want to tell her family. After getting married, if things don't go smoothly and you don't have any money, you have no condition to tell your family. She didn't bring her child home until the college entrance examination resumed and she was admitted to a university in Beijing. The father was both surprised and shocked when he saw her daughter, and scolded her thoroughly. Her good stepmother insincerely advised her, and one day, her stepmother's daughter took her to go shopping, but sold her daughter to a human trafficker. She had been searching for it for over a decade, but when her daughter came back, she was completely unrecognizable. Gaoji suddenly felt his arm trembling in his hand, and looked up at Cheng Hui's face, which was even more terrifying and ironclad. "What's wrong with you, sister-in-law?" she quickly asked. Cheng Hui regained his composure and let out a deep breath. "It's okay, just remembering some unhappy things." "Oh, then don't think about it." "I just never think about unhappy things." "Isn't life always happy?" said Takashi. "Cheng Hui, I didn't expect you to live so transparently." Takashi's mouth was wide open. She didn't know what transparency meant, but when she heard it, she was just praising her. The first time someone praised her. Red Flag Commune is not far from Gaojiatan production team, 10 miles away. Walk fast for half an hour and walk slowly for an hour to arrive. The administrative level of a commune is equivalent to that of a township or town in the future, with government agencies, hospitals, schools, post offices, supply and marketing cooperatives, savings offices, and so on. There are several more factories. The two of them passed by the post office first and then turned inside. Cheng Hui bought 3 envelopes and 2 sheets of writing paper. She first wrote a letter to her father, pondered for a few seconds, and then talked about herself falling into the water, being rescued, getting married, and getting pregnant. Just a statement without a greeting, that's it. Her relationship with her father has always been weak in her previous life. She has 2 older brothers on top and a younger sister 1 year younger below. When she was 1 year old, her biological mother went abroad with her grandparents and only took away her newborn little sister. According to my elder brother, my father used to treat them quite well, but since my mother left without saying goodbye, he has been very indifferent to them. Usually not speaking or making eye contact, Cheng Hui has been treated like this since childhood. After writing the letter, she picked up another envelope and smiled. She didn't use writing paper, but wrote directly on the back of the envelope. "Aunt Pan, I am currently facing financial difficulties. Last December, Su Xiao said that her mother was seriously ill and needed surgery. I lent her all the money in my hand, but she has not returned it to me. You promised me that as long as I gave my job to my sister and went to the countryside on her behalf, you would give me 10 yuan per month. But I have been to the countryside for 9 months now and haven't seen a penny. I don't even have the money to buy stationery now. The winter in northeast China is too cold, around -40 degrees Celsius. I am still wearing autumn clothes. You said my luggage was too heavy, but you immediately mailed my clothes and bedding, but I didn't receive them either. Please send it quickly, please help. January 3, 1973. The postman who had been peeking at her couldn't help but remind, today is January 5th. Cheng Hui smiled and said, it's okay if you're wrong, isn't it? The postman shook his head, of course it doesn't matter. She made a deliberate mistake. I need to get my money back yesterday, right the day before yesterday. If there is a confrontation in the future, she will not be at a disadvantage. On January 3rd, Su Xiao just didn't repay her money. She looked at the envelope and smiled contentedly. Her stepmother works at a large clothing factory in Beijing with 10,000 employees. According to the rules of her past life, this letter will be delivered to their factory's reception room. The security guard will look at each envelope one by one, sort them, and deliver them to various offices. If she deliberately doesn't specify the specific office, the security guard will ask each office whose letter it is. There are so many Pan Li in the factory, who became the stepmother. Who snatched my stepdaughter's job and sent her to the countryside. Who promised to pay but didn't. Who doesn't even mail their luggage. Who wants to freeze people to death. Black-hearted stepmother. Thinking of the expression on Pan Li's face when she receives the letter, Cheng Hui couldn't help but laugh. The image of Pan Li as a peerless stepmother in her previous life has been maintained for most of her life. She wants to tear it off early in this life. Gaoji asked, is sister.in.law laughing so happily writing a letter to my older brother? She is illiterate. Sister-in-law, please write it down, don't let my elder brother send money home every month. Anyway, the money won't reach you. Let him save it and come back with 1 yuan for you, said Takashi. Cheng Hui remembered for a moment that since getting married, Gao Yuan has been sending back her salary every month and writing her name. But as soon as it came time to withdraw money, the children of widow Zhu either fell ill and needed medical treatment, or Gao Laosan had lower back pain, leg pain, and buttocks pain and needed medical attention. Occasionally, she couldn't even buy toilet paper if she wanted to stay behind, but was snatched away, saying that they had been raising Gao Yuan as a drag bottle for so many years, and he had to repay them. Gao Yuan, his mother, married Gao Laosan when she was pregnant with him, and he was the first drag bottle of the Gao family. Later, Gao Yuan's biological mother died when he was 5 years old. Cheng Hui picked up another piece of writing paper and felt a little excited. Gao Yuan doesn't even know she's pregnant now. When she first got married in her previous life, she had a bad impression of Gao Yuan. Although he is incredibly handsome, comparable to the most handsome male celebrity she has ever seen in her past life. She is also her life-saving benefactor. Being forced to marry him is actually not a big deal. Before marriage, she had already lost her heart to her ex-boyfriend and married anyone the same. The main reason is that he is too restless at night. After 3 days of marriage, she hardly slept much. During the day, my whole body was sore and I couldn't get up, and my walking posture was not right. Later on, when he joined the army, he became even more capable of tinkering around. Chapter 6. I heard that your factory is going bankrupt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That was once a painful, shameful, and unpleasant thing for Cheng Hui. This has also caused a lot of misunderstandings between her and Gao Yuan. He thought she was still thinking about her ex-boyfriend. And she also misunderstood Gao Yuan and felt that his daughter was not his. It wasn't until his daughter was lost that he went to great lengths to search for her, and even at all costs, he wanted to avenge her. Only then did she know how much he loved her. In this life, she wants to share this joy with him earlier. Cheng Hui spread out the letter and wrote. I'm pregnant, now 7 months old, probably born in spring. I don't know the boys or girls yet. You can each choose a name. If a man gives a name to a child, his feelings for the child will definitely be different. Cheng Hui didn't use him in his previous life, give him the opportunity in this life. Also, don't send money home anymore. I haven't spent a penny. Next time I reply, just put the letter in the envelope and mail it to the Educated Youth Point. I'm currently staying there due to some issues. Before, Gao Yuan used to send money by wire transfer, using postal savings. He went to postal savings for remittance, and in a few days, Cheng Hui would receive a remittance receipt. The postman would deliver it to her doorstep, and she would then go to postal savings to withdraw the money. So every time I let Widow Zhu keep an eye on me. In the future, let him put the money in an envelope and keep it a little hidden. As for why she went to stay at the Educated Youth Center, I won't write about the truth because I'm afraid of Gao Yuan. Cheng Hui held his pen and remembered the misunderstandings between the two in his previous life. He felt like he had 10,000 words to write, but in the end, he only wrote one sentence. Training is hard, pay attention to your health. My child and I are waiting for you to return safely. Then I simply bought 3 stamps, pasted them all, and sent them away. After leaving the post office, she and Takashi went to the nearby supply and marketing cooperative. I'm lucky today. The supply and marketing cooperative just arrived at 2 boards of cake without tickets, which cost 40 cents per kilogram. Cheng Hui bought 1 kilogram and divided it into 2 pieces, Gao Ji. Wow! Is this the Caozi cake? It's so delicious, exclaimed Takashi. Cheng Hui has actually been so hungry that her heart is on her back. She probably hasn't eaten anything for over a day. But she still felt this poor cake making her throat rough, and she felt like coughing. Not bad, she said. This sentence immediately aroused the dissatisfaction of the delivery person. The woman in her 30s gave her a red and white eye and said, "It's not delicious. You still eat so fast. If you want to eat good food, do you have the money to buy it?" You. Takashi swallowed what was in his mouth, and the person was about to pounce on the other person. This is still a little shrew, she has never lost in a same-sex fight. Cheng Hui grabbed her tightly, looked at the woman's bright red eyes and haggard face, and then looked at the cake she sent, and suddenly smiled. I'm worried about not having a place to eat, isn't that why I'm here? Are you from the commune food factory? I heard that your food factory only knows how to make trough cakes, and because the quality is too poor, it was reported by the public and is going to shut down, right, she said. The woman's expression suddenly became even uglier, and she blurted out, "How did you know?" The factory director only came back yesterday to tell them about this matter. Is it spreading now? Looking at the woman across from her with a big belly, although her clothes are ordinary, her face and temperament are definitely not ordinary, unlike rural people. Or do you have any powerful relatives at home? Just the right time to handle this matter. Cheng Hui's smile was even larger, appearing inscrutable. The woman's expression suddenly changed. She changed her face in a second and rushed over to please her, saying, "Comrade, do you have relatives who are leaders in your family? Can you manage the affairs of our food factory? Can you go back and plead with him? Our food factory is really difficult. It's not that we don't want to make the cake well, what's the difficulty? It's that we don't have any raw materials. According to the recipe, we should bake 100 eggs in one oven, but we can only use 10 eggs. No one can make it delicious." The woman choked up as she spoke. It was said that our factory has closed and no one wants us, so we will be laid off. You rural people, who earn less than a year's wages, can still provide 360 kilograms of food to save their lives. As urban people, if we don't have money, they won't sell our food, and we'll starve to death. Gaoji, who was originally gloating, suddenly felt a surge of sadness as the city dwellers felt even more miserable than her. But I also feel that something is wrong. Comrade, can you save us? The woman looked at Cheng Hui with hope. It's not that she's crazy and just grabs a stranger, but rather, she's really at a loss and would rather catch the wrong one than let it go. Cheng Hui pondered and said, "It's not impossible." The woman, who had little hope at first, her eyes lit up like searchlights and she said, "What? Can you really save us?" "We cannot save in vain," Cheng Hui said. The woman was taken aback and nodded like garlic. I understand, I understand. Don't worry, as long as Stop, it's too early to say these things now. Let's talk about it when we revive your factory, Cheng Hui interrupted her. The woman just suspected that she was a scammer and didn't do anything to collect money. Hearing her words, she was completely relieved. What are they afraid of when they handle things first and then collect money? Let's go, take me to your factory to see. Cheng Hui said. Okay, the woman said attentively. Cheng Hui was about to leave when he remembered something. He turned around and went to the clothing and hat area of the supply and marketing cooperative, pointing to the only Lei Feng hat and asking, "How much is this?" 2 yuan each, the salesperson said. It's really expensive, Cheng Hui said. Give me 2. She asked the only sweater, scarf and gloves again, "How much is this? Do you need a ticket?" The salesperson's eyes lit up and he said, "This is 2 yuan per set, but we need a woolen ticket." Cheng Hui knew there was more to come from her expression. Sure enough, the salesperson took out another set of similar scarf gloves from under the counter and said, "Look at this one, it's thicker than that one, and it uses better yarn. It's not worth it. It's only a set for 1.8 yuan. Cheng Hui second understands that she knitted it herself. 3 yuan, I want 2 sets, she said. This price is actually a bit high, these 2 pairs of scarf gloves are more suitable for 1 yuan per set. But let the salesperson earn some money so that they can talk to her next time they have something to do. Sure enough, the transaction was successful, and the salesperson's face was full of smiles. His gaze at Cheng Hui was no longer so indifferent. Cheng Hui sweetly praised her for her black and shiny hair, which was so beautifully woven that the other person's smile became even bigger. Leaving the supply and marketing cooperative, Takashi is still a bit confused. She put on a new hat, a new scarf, and her face felt a little feverish from the heat. She couldn't believe that the hat and scarf gloves were given to her, which cost 3.5 cents. But she didn't dare to ask, afraid that Cheng Hui would just borrow her to wear it. If she thought too much, it would be embarrassing. The woman looked at Cheng Hui's extravagant appearance and had even greater confidence in her. I can't help but inquire about her information. Chapter 7. I want to be your deputy factory director. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I am an educated youth from Beijing, and now I am her sister.in.law, Cheng Hui said. But it was the woman who kept her information clean, including what men do, how many people there are in the family, how many children they have, and how many grades they are in. How many workers are there in the food factory? What is the situation? After listening, I have a plan in my mind. Upon hearing that she was from the capital, Tao Wan's words became even more intimate, as if she knew everything without hesitation. 3 people walked for 20 minutes and arrived at the commune food factory, right next to the commune. In fact, the entire commune is just one street, with all functional units on this street. In the middle of the street are government agencies, supply and marketing cooperatives, schools, and so on. On both sides of the street are several small factories. Tao Wan entered the door and shouted, "Factory manager! Factory manager! Come on! I invited a living bodhisattva over. She said she can save us." Cheng Hui changed the name, she can't afford it. A dozen or so people ran out of the simple factory building, each with a haggard face and a surprised expression. But when she saw the 2 little girls next to Tao Wan, her face immediately collapsed. Takashi looked excited, looking left and right, as if he was looking at them fat sheep. The other one is more beautiful, still a pregnant woman with a mature temperament, should be an adult, right? But looking at her immature face and watery eyes, it doesn't look like it. Which despicable person bullied a minor girl? Guo Dajuan, with a black face, scolded Tao Wan, "You're just messing around. When's the time? You're still having fun with everyone. You're idle." Tao Wan said, "She said she's an educated youth from Beijing. Someone in her family can manage our food factory. She knows we're closing down. 3 sentences made the eyes of 10 people across the street also brighten. Guodajuan also instantly changed his expression and enthusiastically walked over with his hands extended. He grabbed Cheng Hui's hand and shook it vigorously, quickly releasing it. He enthusiastically said, I'm sorry. Please come in, it's cold outside, sit inside. Cheng Hui and Gao Ji can tell at a glance who is the leader. Cheng Hui walked in calmly. In her previous life, she only learned about the closure of the small food factory in the commune when she heard from the villagers a few years ago that she couldn't buy any cake as a gift. After being reborn, she came up with countless ways to get rich. A food factory is just one line. Now it actively collides with her again, that's their fate, let's start from it. Saying it's a food factory, it's actually a big yard with a few brick and tile houses. A factory director's office, a warehouse, a production workshop, an employee workshop, a place to change clothes, eat, and rest. Cheng Hui looked at every room and ended up staying in the workshop. She touched the freshly cooled oven and said, in the 1950s, machines were made in the Soviet Union and they were older than me. This oven is powerful, it burns coal. The factory director's eyes have become even brighter. Outsiders may not know that this machine is made in the Soviet Union. We can't even say the era. There is definitely someone in this little girl's family who matches her. He has a good idea. Cheng Hui's elder brother is studying mechanical design and is currently working as a designer at a design institute in Beijing assistant. But Cheng Hui was able to know this machine because she had studied mechanical engineering in her previous life. Later, she switched jobs with several companies and designed many different types of machinery. Later, she opened a small home appliance company. She doesn't want to work either, and she also wants to go out and find her daughter, but it's more suitable for Gao Yuan to go in person. And finding a child requires money, a lot of money. Gao Yuan doesn't have time, so she has to work hard. Let's talk, Cheng Hui snapped back and said. Okay, let's talk about it. Guodajuan warmly led the person into the factory director's office and kicked out all the other workers. He is more sensible than Tao Wan, so of course, he wouldn't help in vain with such a big favor. However, he rubbed his hands and said, as you can see, our factory is very poor. You can go out and inquire. We haven't received any salary for 6 months. Afraid of her refusal, Guodajuan continued, but I assure you that as long as our factory does not close down, our wages will be paid. He gritted his teeth and said, we have 11 workers in our factory, and each person will give you 1 month's salary. That's about 400 yuan. Wow! Takashi exclaimed in astonishment, having never seen the world before. She is certain that not a single household in Gaojiadan can come up with 400 yuan. Guodajuan only stared at Cheng Hui. Seeing her expressionless face, her heart sank. The little girl has a big appetite, I don't want your money, Cheng Hui said. Ha! Guodajuan and Gao Ji both looked at her. Did they meet the living Lei Feng? I want to be the deputy director of your factory, Cheng Hui said. Cough cough cough. Guodajuan coughed fiercely. Takashi looked at Cheng Hui with admiration. People from the capital are different, their brains are just amazing. 400 yuan is a one-time deal, but becoming a deputy factory manager is a lifelong deal. A salary of 400 yuan per year, right? A lifetime is like how much? She hasn't learned arithmetic, so she can't understand. Guodajuan calmed down and said with a smile, okay. As long as you can keep our factory from closing down, we happen to have a vacancy for a deputy factory director. Why not give it to you? There are tens of thousands of workers in provincial food factories hundreds of miles away, and hundreds of workers in small county food factories. They are a small and dilapidated commune food factory, including 11 of them. In the eyes of rural people, they also eat public grain, it's really amazing. But in the eyes of urbanites, it's nothing. These 11 people, originally from the county food factory, were all sent over because they offended their leaders. Who didn't come crying at that time? It's rare that this girl is interested now. However, because of this, Guo Dajun's eyes became a bit suspicious again. If a family member really has the ability, wouldn't they just casually find a good job? Why marrying a rural person? How rare is he to be the deputy director of this small and dilapidated factory? Cheng Hui's next sentence deepened his suspicion. Let's talk about it. What did the above tell you? Did you receive a notice to dissolve within a limited time? Or did you dissolve if your performance did not meet any further standards? Guo Dajun's heart sank even deeper, as these words indicated that she had no insider information. Maybe it's just that I heard from some passers-by that they're going bankrupt. He couldn't laugh anymore and said indifferently, I've issued a notice that it will be disbanded after the Chinese New Year. I'm making you the deputy factory director now, and you don't receive any salary, let alone New Year's benefits. He thought these two little girls were here for this, but they were quite bold. Cheng Hui rolled up her sleeves and smiled, you can't speak too early, just listen to me. I guarantee that our factory's New Year's benefits this year will be the first in the county. Chapter 8. True Blowing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guo Dajun looked steadily at the beautiful little girl across from him, feeling that how amazing. The first benefit for the whole county. He dare not even dream of doing this. For the sake of her good looks, he stopped scolding her. Guo Dajun perfunctorily said, then tell me what to do. Cheng Hui Dao said, I need 5 pounds of flour, 30 eggs, 1 liang of sugar, and your pots and pans. Guo Dajun immediately stood up like an old hen protecting her cubs, blocking the only 2 bags of flour and a basket of eggs behind him. His face turned cold and he said, you guys go, I don't have time to play around with you guys. He thought Cheng Hui and Gao Ji were hungry and wanted to have a big meal. Cheng Hui took out 4 yuan from his pocket and patted it on the table. Are these enough to buy 5 pounds of flour and 30 eggs? I'm not here to cheat on food and drink, I really want to be the deputy factory director. You have no other choice, either take a gamble and the factory will come back to life, or go home and rely on others to support you. Relying on others to support it. The whole family is counting on him to support them. Guo Dajun weighed 5 pounds of flour and took out 30 eggs with a heavy face. I went to the employee lounge again and brought her pots, bowls, ladles, pots, oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. He really has no other choice but to take a gamble. Cheng Hui collected the things and went to the workshop. Guo Dajun followed behind her and wanted to enter, but was stopped by Cheng Hui outside the door. My formula is currently confidential, you will find out later. After speaking, he inserted the door. As for the glass windows, as it is winter, they are all sealed with plastic sheets to keep warm, making it invisible to outsiders. Cheng Hui turned around, but was startled. What are you doing? Put it down quickly. Takashi is boiling eggs. Takashi was taken aback and whispered, Sister-in-law, we don't eat boiled eggs. We'll eat scrambled eggs. It's okay, I haven't had scrambled eggs yet. My sister-in-law is still smart. She bought so many things for 4 yuan and didn't use any tickets. Otherwise, even if they have money, they won't be able to buy these things. Cheng Hui couldn't help but laugh and cry. She quickly took the eggs out of the pot and instructed her, brush the pot first. You can do whatever I ask you to do later. Listen to me, I'll make you feel nauseous when you eat eggs in the future. Takashi's sister-in-law is really good at boasting. No wonder I used to be quiet, was it because I was afraid of being beaten? But she obediently brushed the pot, her hands and feet agile. As a procrastinator, how can one have leisure time? She is capable of doing tasks both at home and outside. After brushing the pot, Gao Ji thought that she was about to start mixing noodles, steaming mantou, or scrambled eggs. Unexpectedly, Cheng Hui asked her to steam the flour. The snow-white dry flour was steamed directly on the steamer. "Sister-in-law, is this the way to eat in Beijing?" asked Takashi. Cheng Hui said perfunctorily. "She is turning ordinary flour into low-gluten flour. It's very simple, just steam for 20 minutes. Flour was steaming on the pot, and Cheng Hui instructed Gao Ji to beat cream with egg whites. "There is no egg beater, just rely on chopsticks to beat, and most people cannot beat it. But Takashi is a skilled worker. The flour over there has been steamed, and she has already beaten a bowl of cream." Takashi looked at his labor results with some surprise, never realizing that egg whites would turn into this. City people really know how to eat. Cheng Hui commanded Gao Ji step by step to make the chi-foam cake. Then put it in the oven. As for how to use this coal oven from the 1950s, she doesn't know how to do it anymore. She has only seen this thing in textbooks, but she can't grasp the heat well. Cheng Hui brushed all the tools he had used, tidied them up, and said to Gao Ji, "What did you do just now, especially steaming flour and whipping cream with egg whites? Don't say a word to the public. This is a secret recipe passed down from my family. If you keep the secret, you can work here." Gao Ji was taken aback for a moment, and immediately covered her mouth tightly, nodding to Cheng Hui. "Sure. She won't say it. I won't even say it if I die. I didn't expect my sister-in-law to tell her all the ancestral secrets of her family and use them to find her a job." Moved to the point of wanting to cry. Cheng Hui stood up and opened the door, only to find that all the workers were blocking the door, and there was one lying on the window, trying to look inside. Unfortunately, the cover was too tight and I couldn't see anything clearly. Upon seeing Cheng Hui open the door, Guodajuan immediately asked, "All right?" "No, someone who knows how to make a fire should come in and keep the temperature stable at 160 degrees, Cheng Hui said. I. The thin black man who had just leaned over the window squeezed over. "I'm in charge of the fire, not to mention 160 degrees. As long as you can save our factory, if you want 161 degrees, I'll burn it for you." Cheng Hui looked at this person's skin color, almost catching up with Africans. Looking at his expression, he was absolutely confident. Then leave it to him. This opportunity is also quite precious to her, only once. If it doesn't work out this time, they won't let her try again, even with money. She moved the door open and let everyone in. Guodajuan walked into the house and smelled it. There was no smell of scrambled eggs, but rather a fishy smell of raw eggs. He looked at the oven and asked, "Did you make a cake?" He gave a bitter smile and said, "It's useless. We have the most skilled pastry chef in the province who can make the best tasting trough cake. We don't lack technology, what we lack is raw materials." They offended the leaders of the county food factory, and driving them out was just the first step. Their goal was to eliminate them all. So we don't give them enough raw materials at all. In this way, if the things they produce are not good, the people will criticize them, and the county food factory will have a legitimate reason to dismiss them. Cheng Hui smiled and said, "Actually, the technology is not as strong. Everyone, what if you feel like hitting someone? They are like a group of trapped beasts now, with a very hot temper." But soon, a strange aroma slowly emanated from the oven, something he had never smelled before. The overwhelming aroma instantly calmed their temper. "What kind of cake is this? It smells so good." Tao Wan thought for a while and couldn't think of any other adjectives, but still said, "It smells so good. It smells so good." The others were also similar. "What's inside here?" "Milk. But we don't have any milk. Do we need to put 2 pounds of white sugar here?" But just now the factory manager said he only gave her 1 or 2. Everyone was chatting and talking, while looking at Cheng Hui. But Cheng Hui, the old god, sat on the ground drinking hot water without saying anything. Behind her, Gao Ji excitedly scratched her ears and cheeks, asking, "Sister-in-law, when will it be baked?" Cheng Hui sniffed the smell in the air and said, "The heat remains the same, let's wait for another 15 minutes. After her daughter was retrieved from her previous life, she became mentally unstable and had no reaction to anything except food. The more delicious the food, the happier she is, occasionally showing a happy expression. For this, she delved hard into various delicacies. She knows Chinese, Western, 8 major cuisines, and Manchu Han banquets, and she is very good at them all. Her masters are all top-notch masters of various cuisines. Although she has not passed the certification exam, every master says that she is very talented and has already surpassed others. Making a pastry has reached the point where you can judge when it will be good based on its taste. As the fragrance grew stronger, the expressions of the people in the room became more and more excited. Their poor raw material is mainly eggs. If they don't put enough eggs in, the cake made by them will not be as delicious as mantu. But the egg ratio that Cheng Hui was about to go with just now was much less than the normal slot cake, only 1 or 2 more than they usually put, but the taste was more than 10 times better. They saw hope. Finally, it was time for Cheng Hui to have someone cease fire and open the box. Do you think I look like a fool in Chapter 9? You are listening at novelfull.audio. A strong aroma wafted out and instantly conquered everyone. Kong Laifu took a deep breath and sighed, "I've been making trough cakes for 20 years, and it turns out they're all for nothing." He is the teacher who claims to be the most outstanding in the province. Based solely on taste, he is a complete failure in making a poor cake. "How did you do it?" he asked. Cheng Hui stood by the baking tray he took out, inspecting the finished product. The size is uneven, and the fire is almost dry and cracked. The materials are still not enough, and the techniques are also lacking. Let's make do with it. She didn't answer this question and said to everyone. Everyone was already eager and didn't find it too hot. One person picked up one and tasted it. It was still Tao Wan who was the first to exclaim, "Why is it so soft? Why is it so tender? I have never eaten such a delicious cake in my life." She wants to shout out her grievances loudly. She was almost scolded and cried outside just now. No one else spoke or looked at her now. They are also stunned by the softness of this cake. They really never imagined that the cake could be made so soft and tender, like cotton. There is also an indescribable sweet taste. Sun Laifu couldn't help it anymore and excitedly asked, "How did you do it?" "Just use 30 eggs. 1 pound of flour with 6 eggs. We've used this recipe too. We can't even make this kind of flavor. On the contrary, it's a bit noisy." Cheng Hui just smiled without making a sound. Takashi couldn't help but tug at his cotton jacket, blocking his pant pockets. There are still 5 boiled eggs there. Actually, 1 kilogram of flour only needs to be paired with 5 eggs. This is really Cheng Hui's exclusive secret recipe. Otherwise, if you want to make the waifeng cake so soft and delicious, you would need 15.30 eggs per kilogram of flour. She didn't say it twice, and everyone realized that she didn't want to say it. That's right, this recipe is too important. Not only can she save their factory, but she can also get a job at any pastry factory with this recipe. Guo Dajuan became extremely enthusiastic again and shook Cheng Hui's hand excitedly, saying, "Now you are the deputy director of our factory. What should we do next?" "What do you think?" Cheng Hui asked. Guo Dajuan opened his mouth and said, "I'll take these trough cakes to the county food factory. They will definitely give us the raw materials this time and let us continue production." Cheng Hui looked at him with a slight smile and was forced to do this. How could he still be so naive? However, her immediate superior is naive, which is a good thing for her and easy to deceive. "I don't think this is good. I taught my sister .in.law how to make this cake on site. It was her first time making it, but she didn't perform well and the raw materials were not up to par with what I wanted. Why don't I make a few more batches and make it stable?" Cheng Hui said. Everyone was taken aback. Did a beginner do it for the first time? Are they all so delicious, or haven't they performed well? How did you perform well? They immediately looked forward to it. Guodajuan hesitated for a moment before agreeing. He is now full of confidence, thinking that this poor cake will definitely catch the attention of the county food factory leaders, and that it will be even better and more eye-catching, not short of this moment and a half. Then you keep doing it. He was quite generous this time, taking over all the remaining flour, eggs, and sugar and letting her use them casually. I still need milk. If I don't have milk, milk powder will do, Cheng Hui said. Everyone looked at each other, as they had never put such a precious thing in the cake they made. Guodajuan gritted his teeth and said, I'll go to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy you a can. You don't need much, do you? A can of 500 grams of milk powder can match 100 kilograms of flour, right, said Cheng Hui. Guodajuan felt a bit distressed. 100 pounds of flour costs only around 20 yuan, while 500 grams of milk powder costs 5 yuan. The cost suddenly increased by a quarter. But in order to keep everyone's job, he endured it. A few minutes later, he bought a glass jar of milk powder from his own pocket and carefully handed it to Cheng Hui. The others hesitated inside and didn't want to leave. How can any formula from a food factory be kept confidential? It's all done together, open and transparent. It's not realistic to expect someone to do it, it's exhausting. But this commune food factory is too small, with only one oven, baking 2 plates at a time and 50 plates per plate. A person can also be busy. Cheng Hui said to everyone, one-on-one teaching is better. I'll teach her first, and in the future, we'll teach you both together. It's also fast. Upon hearing this, everyone immediately left with satisfaction. With this technology, they can go to other food factories and also find jobs. No one is really stupid. Gao Ji stopped working and immediately said, Sister-in-law, do you really teach them? They are different from me. Be careful not to teach your disciples to starve to death, master. Do you think I look like a fool? Cheng Hui sat down slowly and poured herself a glass of milk powder. Old milk powder from the 1970s, pure milk fragrance, so delicious that she wanted to sigh. The baby inside also liked it very much and gently kicked her several times. Cheng Hui's smile grew even bigger. Teaching these people is possible, but not right now. Takashi looked at the expression on her face, which was full of 800 heart-shaped eyes, and suddenly felt relieved. You eat too, Cheng Hui greeted. Takashi was pleasantly surprised and said, Can I? Before Cheng Hui could agree, she had already started to storm the clouds. Fist-sized cake, she takes 2 bites each. Judging from that posture, a baking tray is not enough for her to show off. Eat less, it's not good to start like this. When I secure the position of factory manager, you can eat as much as you want, Cheng Hui said. Gaoji suddenly choked, her eyes watery with tears. My sister-in-law is really kind to her, it's just a bit ambitious. So it's not about being a deputy, but about being a regular. After eating and drinking, the two continued to work hard. This time Cheng Hui also took action. She personally prepared the ingredients and stirred them, using only Gao Ji as a personal shaped egg beater. The second batch of baking is indeed more delicate and tender. And because of the addition of milk, the taste has improved by more than 1 grade. She baked 2 more ovens and didn't stop until she ran out of eggs. The taste of the latter 2 furnaces is a bit better, but with the existing raw materials, this is basically the effect. Guodajuan was so excited as he looked at several large baskets of trough cakes, and the production was much higher than before. Before, they used to make about 15 pieces of 1.5 pot cakes per kilogram of flour. Now Cheng Hui is making it even more fluffy. He can make 25 pieces per kilogram of flour, the same size as before, but the quantity has increased significantly. The common people are definitely happier to buy a hand. Who dares to say that their red flag food factory is not doing a good job? Who dares to dismiss them with this reason? I'm going to deliver it to the county food factory now. Guo Dajuan carried the freshly baked basket and wanted to leave. Wait a moment, Cheng Hui said, I don't think it's the right time either. Everyone looked at her. Director Guo, since I am already the deputy factory director, let's divide the work. In the future, you will be responsible for personnel transfer, and I will be responsible for production and sales. How about that? Cheng Hui said. Guo Dajuan felt relieved and his gaze at Cheng Hui was completely unguarded. Being young means having little experience and not being sensible. Only those who manage people are called managers. Only then can he look like a factory director. Being in charge of things is not pleasing. Go, 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 go. You have the final say in production and sales in the future. I listen to you, said Guo Dajuan. Okay, Cheng Hui said, then listen to me. We won't send it to the county food factory for now. We'll make all the flour and sell it. The money we sell will be used to pay everyone's salary. One sentence made everyone stand on her side. Guo Dajuan looked at the fierce eyes of the crowd and gently put down the basket. Chapter 10. Are you crazy? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, we can't give it to them. Otherwise, it's all meat buns beating dogs. Indeed, if you give one basket as a gift, they only care about the other baskets. If we bake these today, they will have to take them away. When everyone mentioned the county food factory, they didn't look good. Guo Dajuan asked AI in anticipation, but they have all been sold. What proof can we use to prove that we have baked better cake? Can we continue operating the food factory? Everyone thought about it and looked at Cheng Hui. Cheng Hui, sure enough, birds of a feather flock together, no wonder these people can gather together. They are all solid eyes. I only used 20 pounds of flour today, and there are still a few dozen pounds left. I'll just bake them again in the future, she said. But we don't have any eggs, and we don't have enough sugar, said the old gangster who was in charge of the fire. How about buying white sugar from the supply and marketing cooperative, and eggs from the production team at a price of 8 cents each? Cheng Hui said. Nowadays, ordinary people usually pay 7 cents per egg to the public, and 7 cents per egg to sell on the black market. Public takeout usually costs 1 yuan per kilogram. The price she gave is quite reasonable. But now it's all centralized procurement and sales. For example, this commune food factory cannot purchase raw materials on their own and must wait for distribution from above. I'm used to waiting for food, but I never thought I could buy it myself. But now I have no choice but to go out and buy it myself, and if I can buy it, it will be good. But we don't have the money. We haven't received any salary for several months, and our family is running out of money. If it weren't for the 4 yuan you gave me for buying milk powder just now, I wouldn't have had it. Guo Dajuan said with some embarrassment. Cheng Hui, she still wants to get back her 4 yuan. She's even poorer than them, okay. It's okay, I still have a few yuan in my pocket. Let's put some eggs on top of it for tomorrow. When these poor cakes are sold, we'll have money, Cheng Hui said. Everyone looked at several baskets of cake, but their expressions did not improve. Instead, they woke up and looked even worse. Cheng Hui baked 4 batches, each batch using approximately 4 kilograms of flour, making a total of 16 kilograms of flour. If you sell poor cake, it's 16 pounds. 4 cents per kilogram, a total of 56 yuan can be sold, but it's not really much money. Nowadays, the weight of pasta is calculated in this way. 1 gene of mantou, 1 gene of noodles and 1 gene of dumplings are not the weight of finished products, but the weight of 1 gene of raw flour. For example, 1 kilogram of dumplings is equivalent to 60, because 60 dumpling skins are equivalent to 1 kilogram. Cheng Hui smiled and said, as long as everyone listens to me, I guarantee that everyone's salary will be paid before the new year, and the New Year's benefits will also be the first in the county. Everyone looked at her, at the pile of cake behind her, with twisted expressions. The left face was believing, and the right face was skeptical. Cheng Hui took out 1 yuan from his pocket and handed it to Gao Ji. You go to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy 20 sheets of large craft paper, they must be intact and undamaged, she said. Why do you want so much craft paper? Takashi asked as he walked out. It's not for me, it's for the factory. What about the accountant? In terms of accounting, remember to pay me back tomorrow when the factory has money. Oh, there's also the previous 4 yuan. Cheng Hui said. Upon hearing that he was not spending his own money, Takashi didn't ask and walked away in a daze. The small food factory has all 5 organs, not only an accountant, but also a cashier, all of whom are young people in their 20s. They offended people with their youthful vigor and were expelled here. Now both of them have very exciting expressions. These 1 yuan and those 4 yuan, why don't we just sell these poor cakes and let Cheng Hui take the top bill? Do you have a brush and fountain pen ink? If you want black fountain pen ink, you'll have to go buy it. Cheng Hui asked again. There is something. Guo Dajuan quickly said. He is afraid of answering too late. These poor cakes are not enough to cover the bill, they still have to pay back. He hurriedly went to find a brush and fountain pen. Over there, Agile Takashi has already returned holding a large roll of craft paper. There are several types of craft paper nowadays, with each window size costing 5 cents, and 20 sheets being a lot. And Takashi retrieved more than 20 pieces, it was 25 pieces. These few photos are all cracked, or the corners are rotten, they're not worth it. I'm going to come. Can I use them too? She asked for credit. Cheng Hui smiled. This is the advantage of not bargaining when buying a scarf just now. Otherwise, she would have knelt down and begged, and no one would have given her. Well done. Now help me cut them. Cheng Hui asked for the scissors again. Then I drew a size, cut out a few samples, and handed them over to others, directing everyone to work together. Everyone didn't know what medicine she was selling in her gourd, and there was a sweet and creamy aroma floating in the room. As a fresh deputy factory director, she is still quite effective at the moment. In no time, the craft paper was cut according to her requirements, in 2 sizes, 1 large and 1 small. Cheng Hui folded the cut craft paper back and forth, creating a craft paper bag. A large bag can hold 10, while a small bag can only hold 1. Everyone suddenly realized. Tao Wan boasted, not to mention, this packaging is quite attractive and convenient, much more fashionable than when we casually tie our bags with ropes. The last word was not spoken because she saw the words written by Cheng Hui on the unopened packaging bag, and her eyes widened wider and wider. They're all going to fall down. Cheng Hui's font is very beautiful, with rounded regular script and standard printing style. But the content written is also too scary. Chi Foam Cake. Production date. January 5, 1973. Shelf life. 3 days. Retail price. 1 yuan. This is written on a small craft paper bag that can only hold 1. Tao Wan stared and waited. Sure enough, Cheng Hui wrote on the big cowhide paper bag again, with the same words at the beginning and retail price. 10 yuan at the end. Are you crazy? She exclaimed in surprise. Everyone else has the same expression. 1 yuan per piece. They are even poor and crazy, they dare not write like this. The key is that you are crazy, the common people are not crazy. 1 for 1, who will buy it? Are you a fool? Tao Wan said. Cheng Hui smiled and said, when it was the most difficult time back then, candy was sold out for 20 yuan per kilogram, and there were also pastries for 20 yuan per kilogram. Isn't it so much of a fuss? She spoke the truth. In this era of planned economy, everything you buy requires a ticket, and if you don't have a ticket, you won't sell it to me. Only urban residents have tickets, while rural residents only have a few cloth tickets and fuel tickets. There are no other scarce tickets, such as sugar tickets, bicycle tickets, TV tickets, etc. And rural people have some money in their hands, accumulating little makes a lot. And those city dwellers who earn more are also wealthy without tickets, unable to spend. For example, if you pay 80 yuan a month and all the tickets are spent, you can only spend 30 yuan. The remaining 50 yuan is like waste paper, which is a pity to throw away and useless to keep. This is a huge amount of non-circulating funds. In order to recover this portion of the funds, starting from 60 years ago, there were high-priced candies, pastries, tobacco and alcohol, and they sold very well without tickets. But what we do is not the high-priced pastry as stipulated. The supply and marketing cooperative does not accept it, and the common people do not recognize it. I hesitate even for 50 cents per kilogram, and for over 20 yuan per kilogram, it cannot be sold at all. Guo Dajuan said.